We continue our series on prayer by considering the different postures for prayer. Now, most of you will assume, rightly so I think, that it's important to be still, to be relatively quiet, and to find somewhere that's quite peaceful. You might find a particularly happy place, which might be outdoors. You might be in a chair. You might be sitting comfortably. You may find that actually a posture of prayer, kneeling, is better for you. You might find that actually a little bit of pain in your knees helps you to remember that you are human and why we are praying to God and thanking Him. When you are leading public worship, it's important to consider how the congregation or the church in front of you is postured, whether they are standing, whether they are sitting, whether they are kneeling, whether they are adopting a different kind of pose or a different kind of posture for prayer. Generally speaking, my experience is in the modern age that most people prefer to sit quietly and perhaps lean forward and perhaps clasp their hands together as they are praying, and often they close their eyes. This is really important in order to shut out as much of the outside world as possible and from the distractions, and to listen and to reflect not only what is being prayed, but also whether there are any responses from God. Remember that prayer is a dialogue and that it's important that people respond in that way. I've said elsewhere that it's really important also to maintain silence and space within prayer to enable that dialogue to take place. In some traditions, priests will stand when they are praying, and perhaps the people will too. And that reflects the significance of the act in praying to God and adopting a respectful position. You'll notice, particularly in the Anglican and Catholic traditions and elsewhere in the Protestant churches, that a priest, when praying over the elements at communion, will often be standing and will have his or her hands like this. Now, there are a number of different ways you can do this, but this is called the orans position, the prayer position, and it's designed to signify to the congregation that the priest or the leader of the worship is actually praying on their behalf. You'll find this also occurs during the collect in some traditions as well. Now, the collect, as the name suggests, is a collective prayer. It's that prayer which brings everyone together. It's generally shared across the whole of the Christian church on that particular day and is usually shared by everyone. It's one of those common factors that brings the church into unity and is so important, and will be signified often by the priest who is speaking the collect, praying the collect, or singing the collect with his or her hands thus. It's really important to remember that if you're going to pray for a long time, and by that I mean probably more than 10 or 15 minutes, then you need to make sure that people are sitting in a manner that is most conducive to them actually being able to focus on what is being said and not on the posture. Many people can stand for 10 minutes without question. Not everybody can. And there is that nervousness about having to sit down halfway through because your knees really won't stand it anymore or your hips are giving you troubles. So as a leader of worship, it's really important to keep that in mind. The other element of posture in prayer is a mental posture, that openness that I've talked about. And it's really important that people can focus on what is being said and give pause and thought to their own response to that. One of the difficulties of leading worship is actually to try and get the balance right. And with practice, you'll get better at that. it's important to recognize that some people will be struck by something that you've said and will go off on a tangent and will eventually come back and wonder where you are. So structure is quite important in that sense, that you are actually saying something, that you are actually pulling them back in, and that you're actually able to hold them in that moment as they go off and think about something else. I think also one of the considerations of posture in prayer is that you are able to lead worship from a position where people can potentially see you and see what you're doing. If you are worshipping in an older style church, you might find that you have a stall to one side and you may be sitting in that. You may choose to stand or you may choose to kneel, depending on your tradition and your personal preference within those traditions. But it's really important, I think, to be able to be seen by those who are worshipping if they need to see somebody, if they need to take a cue from you as to what the position, the posture needs to be.